Top of the morning, fellas. I just ate my breakfast. I'm out taking Ode for a walk. It's actually less cold than it's been the last couple days. It's like 10 Fahrenheit right now, whatever, below 0 Celsius. But it's windy today, so pretty brutal. I'll probably give you guys more details on what we're doing today once I'm back in the warm, because goddamn it's cold. All right, we're back inside. I'm gonna go get on the treadmill to start warming up for the gym. I'm gonna drink an energy drink, which I have today. Feeling really bougie, because usually I just have caffeine pills to save money. But I grabbed myself an energy drink the other day, so that's fun. I always feel extra prepared. It's all placebo, but that'll be cool. Gonna take a long warm up. Usually walking the dog acts as my general warm up, and then I start getting into the gym and doing my training. Obviously, it's really cold. I do not feel warm, so I'm gonna hop on the treadmill, just take my time, drink my energy drink, sip some water, try to improve my hydration status, because I'm training after just one meal today, mostly just because new training cycle is starting up. More on that later. Yeah, so I woke up, brushed my teeth, standard stuff, fed the dog. For breakfast before training today, I had 8 ounces of chicken, 100 grams of rice, uncooked weight, 75 grams of broccoli slaw. I've just been liking having broccoli slaw as my veggies for most of my meals nowadays, mostly just because it adds texture. I find that I can eat big quantities of food if the texture is a little bit varied, whereas if it's like kind of one monotonous texture, it gets pretty rough. So broccoli slaw for the veggie. For my fruit, I ate a little container of blackberries for some extra carbs, and also I try to get a little bit of fruit with each of my meals. Part of that's just getting a little bit of fructose, which supposedly, according to Stan Efferding, has a positive stimulatory effect on your liver to help with your liver health, and then also all of the micronutrients that tend to come with most fruits. I find it worthwhile to just include a little bit of fruit with each meal. Find that really bumps my energy levels up if I space some fruit through the day. And then I drank 2 cups of 2% milk. 2% because I have to keep my fat intake moderate, because my stomach's kind of fucky. But right now, we're drinking about half a gallon of milk a day, for no reason other than the fact that it's just tough for me to eat enough food. So we're experimenting with that. So far, so good. I don't feel too horrendous. Then I took Ode out for a walk, as you saw, and we're going to start getting ready for training. Usually I'm stronger after 2 meals. If I have a really big session, I'll do it in the evening once I've got more meals in me. My hydration status is more improved. But early in a training cycle, when I'm just putting in work, I look forward to training, so I want to do it earlier. Usually I train after 2. Feeling impatient today, so we're going to train after 1. I just have to wait to go get on the treadmill because Max is still asleep. He should be getting up to go to work right about now. So any second now, once Max is up, I'll hop on the treadmill. I just don't want to take away any of his sleep because he is also training today. I believe Max is doing his, it's supposed to be his primary bench day. He's got a little bit of bicep tendinopathy, depending on how technical you want to be, going on. So I think what he's going to do is he's going to do his secondary bench press and then fill in some volume using overhead, because he's usually able to do some good standing overhead volume when his biceps are thrashed. So that can kind of be a stand-in. It's not as good as if he was doing something more specific, but it lets us get some pressing in, because when you're a big squatter, the reason all those big super heavyweights with 1,000-pound squats don't have the most impressive benches in the world isn't because they aren't big, strong guys, and it's not because they aren't trying. It's because they're usually just dealing with constant damage to the wrists, biceps, shoulders, elbows, from having 1,000 pounds on your back. Even if you do a great job with your back tightness, you have relatively good upper back and shoulder mobility for a big guy. Just having 1,000, enough of that's going to sit in the hands that it's just kind of a constant of really, really strong guys, and it stunts the bench development. If you look at like Ray Williams, if you look at Dan Bell, if you look at Eric Lillybridge, Andrei Milanichev, All of those guys would bench a lot more if they didn't have that constant upper body damage. And one of the ways that we've been able to work around that for Max is obviously we're always working on making sure we hold as much weight across the back and as little in the hands as possible. But B, we can always use overhead to allow him to get in some pressing volume. So I think that's his plan for the day. He trains after work at the gym in town. I train. I'm starting to mix it up a little bit. I've been training at home. I think that the variety and training environment kind of keeps you more present in your workouts, and it stops you from going through the motions. So I got to transfer the title of my car so that way I can register it here in Montana. But then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it up on some sessions. I'll train at the gym in town so I can hop on the leg press or the belt squat. Some sessions I'll do at home. And I think mixing it up a little bit will just help me stay present in my training. I like to follow bodybuilding a bit because I'm trying to learn how to get big. And I've heard James Hollingshead kind of talk about that, where it's like, I like that he is honest with himself and he doesn't feel the need to like chase logical consistency when that isn't how he feels. Because in the past, he said, oh, I love going to the gym when people like stare at me during a set, like not to be vain, but I like that motivates me more. Like I'm going to work hard. I'm going to show you why I'm this strong. And like that's an external motivation system for him. But then during this past Olympia prep, he talked about, I kind of want to just focus. This is my job. I want to clock in and clock out. And I don't want to be surrounded by, people that are doing the same thing as me, but at a very low level. I don't want to feel dragged down, not in like an arrogant way, but he would go to like his friend's private training facility, right? So I'm like, I think it's cool to just be like, what matters most isn't that I'm consistent in what I'm saying. It's what matters most is the result. And if I have to drive into town some days for the best result, get some external energy, awesome. If training in the gym, I don't want to be around people, that lets me get the best result. That's what I'm going to do because we're prioritizing the result here. So once Max is up, I'll head over there. That's the plan. All right, Brother Maxwell is still not up, so a little change of plans. I will tell you guys what I was going to tell you on the treadmill here, and then I'll just watch some cool videos I like to watch before I work out on the treadmill. So what I was going to say is Paris just sent me a new block of training. In the past, my training has been like collaborative with Paris, where mostly it would be I write it, Paris oversees it, I do it. But most of the ideas are originating from me. Whereas I texted Paris the other day and I'm like, hey man, I watched a video that was interesting food for thought, right? So more or less through my whole training career, everything I've done has been written by me. And I think that a lot of that's because I like to tinker with training. It's just something I like to think about. It's something that I like fiddling with the mechanics of. I always have ideas that I want to test. And I think that has made me a much better coach. And it's given me lots of things that I've tried. I know the context for lots of different things because I've basically done them all within my own training. But I think that constant tinkering may, make me a better coach, but a worse athlete. And I have a window where I feel like I'm in a position where I could be very, very strong. And while I could coach after that window, my chance to be an athlete is only so long, or at least my chance to be an athlete at a very high level is only so long. So what matters most to me is that I actualize that, because I think I would regret that knowing, if I did a better job. In the video, they basically talked about no matter how good you are at self-coaching, you have a finite amount of resources, which I know that's a controversial theory in itself, that like mental resources are finite, but let's just say that's true. You have a finite amount of mental resources, and any resources that you devote to coming up with a good plan and adjusting that plan and examining that plan, even if you're good at trusting it and you're not second guessing it, any energy you're devoting to that is taking away from energy that you're dedicating to executing the plan to the best of your ability, to being the best athlete you can. And instead of thinking about what you're going to do on a session, you say, okay, well, the plan is there. What can I do to make that session as good as possible? What can I do on my end as the athlete? And I was like, okay, that's a really interesting way of phrasing it, because obviously lots of the arguments you hear were guys who are very intelligent, who I would say that they've got all the right in the world to coach themselves, is just removing innate emotional biases, right? And that's the struggles. It's so hard to be objective. It's so hard to be objective. And I've always found that being objective with myself was on the easier side. But this whole resource allocation thing, I thought was very interesting. And I got the old Nog and Jog, and I was like, okay, well, shoot, I don't want this to be true because that means I'm missing out. So I was like, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I thought about it for a little bit and I was like, what would I tell someone else? And I was like, I tell somebody else that a flawed plan executed with like extreme intent is usually going to outperform a really good plan executed with poor intent. So I was like, okay, that idea of maximizing what you can do as an athlete, that matters a lot more than the specifics of the plan. It's the same reason that when guys I coach have success, I don't really feel keen to take that much credit for it. You know, they are the ones who are going to bed on time. They're eating all their meals. They're putting a lot of thought and work into their form. They're executing their accessories with intent. They're the reason. I just provided a rough framework that I thought would be a little bit more intelligent way to direct their effort. But the effort is what makes the good athlete. That's the minimum. That's the baseline, is that effort. And then like you can make it really far with just the effort. And then you're just trying to direct the plan in a smart way, right? So I texted Paris and I was like, hey man, I'm going to try, emphasis on try, because I've coached myself in basically everything I've ever done. And I've had good success, so I guess part of that's made me a jackass. But I'm going to try to fuck off and like take my hands off. Obviously, I'm going to give feedback because that's part of being a good athlete. But I'm going to fuck off and I'm going to do it. Even if what I get via the spreadsheet is not what I would have written, I'm going to do it a couple times. I'll give Paris my feedback, but I'm going to fucking do it. I'm going to focus on doing it well. So I messaged Paris all weekend about like kind of the specifics of what I've been doing. He got me a plan. It's definitely a bit different than what I would write. And that's not a bad thing. And I think it's a good chance to prove to myself that it's the execution that matters rather than the exact specifics of the plan. So today is the first day of our new training cycle. Today is squat day. I think I've got a couple of sets at 7 and then one rep at the end. On the SSB, I mentioned to Paris, I can probably get into some high bar squatting on the straight bar at some point. I've kind of got my mobility fixed up. A little nagging shoulder injury is going away. I like having front squats in my program always. I just find that those have so much utility for my deadlift and strongman events that I just like training them. But as far as what back squat I do, it can vary a little bit, right? I find that the SSB places a little bit more emphasis on like the spinal erectors. So it's helpful for picking stuff up off the floor, as well as obviously it develops leg power. Whereas I find that because the high bar squat isn't pitching you forward, it's maybe a little bit less back and a little bit more legs. So obviously both of them are great development tools for the legs. Both of them are super viable. But the way I kind of view that intersection is the SSB is going to bias a little bit more towards picking stuff up off the ground, and the high bar is going to bias a little bit more towards developing leg power for like overhead events, or leg power for like a truck pull, where we're focused a little bit more on the legs because we're not constantly having to fight being pulled forward by the bar. So that's kind of opened up as an option. But today we have like, I think it's like 435 pounds, nothing heavy, for some volume. Paris says to sandbag just a little bit to start acclimating to the rapid bump up in workload. So just kind of train the work capacity on the main lift. Got some hanging leg raises, I believe. So some direct ab work, pretty standard stuff. We're going to do some paused leg press once I'm driving into town for this session, but today we're going to do some paused Hatfields as a home gym stand-in. I think that's a great pick. No complaints there. Just fills that role of squat pattern volume that's less limited by the lower back. So nothing to complain about there. I believe we have working up to a tough set of walking lunges. It's exactly what I would be doing. So easy buy-in for me there. Working up to a top set of leg extensions. So this session, very similar to kind of the approach that I would be taking for this phase of training. So the buy-in, nice and easy. So we're going to focus on executing that to the best of my ability. I think that's going to be my plan, right? Is I'm going to come in, I'm going to look at the session ahead of time. I'm not going to question it. I'm going to say, okay, this is the plan. How can I do the best job possible? I'm going to do it. And then at the end of each day, my plan is to send Paris a little reflection on what I thought, what I need to work on, maybe adjustments to the program. And then kind of forecast the next day. All right, I think I hear Max moving, so I'm going to hop on the treadmill in a moment. But just to talk about kind of my general goals in training right now, big priorities. I want to just start chugging away, I'm not saying I'm gonna do it anytime soon. I like to think I've moved past the whole you hit your first 3 plate bench and then suddenly you're saying road to 4 plates. You should probably look for like incremental goals, and of course I'm looking for incremental goals, but I do want to just start gradually chipping away for a 880 deadlift. I think that's going to take a while. I think that I'm not delusional. That's going to be a long slog, but I think a 400 kg deadlift would be something that I really would like to get done. I did 815 the other day, which did build some confidence in me. That felt good off the floor. The lockout, not so great, but I think Paris and I have some good plans for kind of evening out that strength curve, be it some pauses off the floor to improve positioning, working on some back extensions off the glute ham raise. We got some plans I think are pretty solid. So that's a big priority. I want to do a big deadlift. It's the lift that makes the least sense to me historically, and I finally started to get it to click a little bit. So that's a big priority. Just continuing to develop my upper back strength because that's been a relative weakness through my career. I don't even think it's genetic. I just think it was when I first started training at the YMCA, we had very little in the way of back equipment, and for some reason I didn't do many barbell rows or pull-ups because I was obsessed with the fancy equipment. So I was using all the fancy equipment for all the muscles, but there wasn't much for back. So when I started writing routines, for me specifically, the amount of upper back work was not a ton. So we're trying to catch that up. I think the efforts to build up my lats a lot has impacted my deadlift very positively. Obviously got to continue building the posterior chain, but that's not a relative weakness. I think it's my posterior chain's reasonably strong. Obviously it's got to get stronger. So I've got lots of goals in terms of, okay, well, what do I feel I have to do on a pause deadlift? What do I feel I need to do for these accessories? Kind of what is the general level of physicality that I need to reach? Excited to push for that. So that's goal 1. I would like to also, I wouldn't say it's a goal, but a means of getting my deadlift up is continuing to improve my front squat. I'm kind of playing around with doing those in flats, making it actually harder on the back because it's meant to help my deadlift and my stones, which are pretty back heavy. So that's just something I'm messing around with, maybe moving it away from the quads a little bit. I would like to improve that. The front squat's more of a means to an end. So it's like, okay, well, I might leave my belt off and I might pause them. So the numbers might not be quite as impressive as if I was doing like a rep with a stretch reflex and a belt on. I'd be like, I'm chasing a 600. If I'm chasing 600, I'm chasing 600. But the main thing that matters to me is that I'm getting the result of the exercise. So I like to get my deadlift big, I like to get my front squat big. I'd like to do some big rep sets on the squat. I find that to be relatively helpful for just my general physicality, is if I can do like good rep sets on squats, I'm in pretty good shape. I can feel that leg power. I don't necessarily feel like training upper end percentages a lot of the time, like that 90+% range. It's fun and I don't think it's useless. I just don't think that spending too much time there is developing the physical qualities I want. I want to be able to output force for like a full minute with a good chunk of weight. And I think that builds kind of the leg power I'm looking for. So excited to hit some big rep sets on the squat. I think I'm going to need to swap out my SSB for the one in town soon because I'm running out of room there. So if we end up, hitting a heavy single at the end, I'd like to not have to worry about room on the bar, but, get the back squatting strength on par, especially for reps. I like having big rep sets on the squat. I find that when I'm good at that, my gas tank is fucking endless compared to hard rep sets on the squat. Nothing else gasses me. So that's kind of my lower body / back goals. And then as far as the pressing, I'd like to crack into the low 400s on my push press. It's going really well. I might be able to do that just right now, but I'm going to ease into it and make sure that I'm reinforcing reasonably good technique. When I push up to the high percentages, of course, there's some deviation in technique, but I'd like to get progressively more skillful with my dip and drive mechanic. And also just, obviously, I'm a jackass. I like continuing to develop my strict shoulder power, even if the means to a bigger overhead right now is just getting more technical at my leg drive. I'm still going to be doing my behind the neck Smith presses. I'm still going to be doing my high incline barbell pressing just because it's cool. And I want to take like 4 plates for a ride on both of those. So that's kind of where we're at with training right now. very fun to have some concrete goals in place of like, okay, deadlifts and front squats are up there. High rep back squats is a goal I have on the board. It's got some push press numbers in mind. So lots of fun stuff. Wow. Okay. Also, glad I went over this. I'm also doing some heavy push press today. I mentioned to Paris, I was like, look, especially because my technique is kind of the limiting factor. I've got good leg strength, I got good shoulder strength, and I'm just technically dumb. Let's stick to lower rep push presses with a little bit higher percentages for the time being. So I think I've got light squats, heavy push press, and then leg accessories. So that's a plan for the day. Sorry for rambling so much. This is a long ass intro with no lifting. All right, mystery solved. Max is not up yet because he took the day off work, so he's sleeping in. I was worried because he was spotting and loading at a meet yesterday and got a squat dumped on him. Nothing heavy, he's fine, but his phone got absolutely tacoed by the bar, like hitting him in the hip crease, which sucks because he just paid to get his phone repaired like last week. Now it's wrecked. I was worried that he didn't have an alarm on his old phone that he put a SIM card in. It was intentional. All is well. I'm going to go hit the treadmill.
All right, what's going on, fellas? Finished up the session here. Going to do a voiceover. I just ate my post-workout meal. Took Ode for another quick little walk. I'm just going to give you my thoughts on this session. Texted Paris about it afterward, feeling super happy about the adjustments we made. I feel very good going into next week. Here's Max showing he's alive and well, just took the day off of work. But I feel great about the adjustments we made for next week. I like how this plan is falling into place. So today, my main motion was these SSB squats. I'm kind of doing them in a constant tension style. Not that that's something I would recommend for everybody. I think that it yields less technical practice because the only rep you're doing, like a true 1RM, would be the first one. The rest of them are just fundamentally different. So the amount of technique practice you're getting out of them is less. I've been squatting for a long time, so I feel pretty comfortable with my technique being consistent, and it lets me focus on a couple of mechanics that I was really trying to hammer home today. So I elected to do them like that. Paris said all good. The ab motion for the day was hang leg raises. I'm a big fan of hanging leg raises, so I was more than happy to do those. Paris said do them. I did them. Did them between the sets on these SSB squats. Felt pretty good about it. The SSB squatting for the day was supposed to be 3 sets at RPE 7 and 1 rep out. Paris and I discussed we're definitely going to drop back that volume and make sure that we're going to focus on the quality and then build into the volume. Basically, we're just making some adjustments in the loading there. I feel really good about it. Today, I did 435 pounds for 7 reps, 8 reps, 8 reps, 10 reps. Next week, I think we're going to add a little weight to the bar, do a few less sets, and really hammer home some intensity. So feeling really, really good about the adjustments we made in terms of the squat progression. And the nice part is I think this approach we're taking with the squat right now could be applied to any of my squat variations. So I think we could overlay any motion here. I could do straight bar, I could do camber bar, I could do pauses, and I think all of them would work really, really well. So I'm very happy that we kind of have a sustainable approach to my leg day. I feel very good going forward with this session, and hopefully through this week we're going to get the other days calibrated to where we just get to plug in work and chug away for some PRs. Let's see. That was a set of 10, I believe. And then we moved on to some push pressing. My low back is still pretty fried from the 815 deadlift I did this past weekend, so I elected to leave a little in the tank, and by a little I mean a lot on the push presses. Just get a touch in. I did a quick little 3 plates for 2 here, so 315 double. Felt decent. Could have been a lot better executed, but mostly was just trying to get in a little touch here. Those went well. We have a pretty reasonable plan on those. These leg extensions were supposed to be at the end. I was doing them to pre-fatigue because my low back was fried from the deadlifts. I wanted to go really light on this first week of pause Hatfields, so I decided I would pre-exhaust. Worked up to a top set of like 30 reps on these. Again, focusing on a fewer number of sets and making sure that the requisite intensity and the proximity to failure is true on these before we go add in any more volume. Took these really light just to feel them out. They're kind of my at-home leg press variation for the time being. I think with the pauses, it'll be nice because I won't have to use quite as much weight. And then at the end, I did a 30 rep per leg walking lunge set back and forth in the garage. This was brutal, but a great way to end the session. I'm feeling really good about the structure of our leg day going forward this training cycle.